Hi, welcome to the Virgin River Cafe. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Gigi.
We are bringing you the rewatch of Virgin River. Today, I'm drinking an iced coffee with cookie butter flavor, just a splash of milk. How about you, Gigi?
Well, today I'm going hot.
Mm.
I'm going the way I like my men, dark
Yes.
and strong.
All right, well, let's just sit down, have a chat, and we're going to get into.
Season 1, Episode 3, and Found.
Now we've had Lost, and now we're being found. So this episode says Mel considers being a temporary foster parent to Chloe while grappling with her own grief. Oh, see, there's a story there. Jack works to convince her to stay in Virgin River. Well, he's smitten, so of course he wants her to stay. That's a given. Okay, this episode. It's funny how every episode seems to have like a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Well, that's typical soap opera style.
Netflix is usually, especially when this came out, there was a lot of different kind of, very different from Virgin River. You know, Stranger Things was super popular and a bunch of other things that were just like edgier and darker. I mean, it's very dark. So this was very, very different when it first came out.
Right.
And
Because I watched it when it first came out. And the thing about it was that one of the reasons I was attracted to it is that there's no murder. There's no over sexiness. It's a good old fashioned romance.
right.
About two main characters and the people in their life, and there's no swearing,
A little bit of swearing, a little bit of sex,
yeah,
a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but not.
yeah,
It's
but
not
it's not
overpowering.
right. And I can sit in a room with, if a child walks into the room, I don't feel embarrassed by what may or may not be seen. The
Right.
sexy, some things, yes, but it's a good show.
Yeah.
And it's not everything is shoot 'em up, bang 'em out,
Right.
bow bow bow.
Right.
And I think a lot of Americans and Canadians and people worldwide were looking for
Big in
something
Brazil.
like,
Very big in Brazil, apparently.
oh yeah, they're big. They're
Big
big in
everywhere.
Europe.
Yeah.
And since his name, who plays Jack,
Martin Henderson.
Martin is Australian.
New Zealand. He's a Kiwi.
New Zealand. He's a Kiwi. It's also big in that part of the country as well.
Yeah.
Because he's a rock star there.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was.
He's had a very, very long career.
Right.
He's
had a very
been very
long career.
busy.
Not only is he well known here, but he's also well known there.
Right.
So they're very proud of him.
Yes.
And so the show is just touched a hardcore of certain demographics of people
absolutely.
who are just done with all the violence and all the
people needed some good loving, good, wholesome,
they did.
calm, beautiful scenery. Let's just, let's all go to Virgin River.
Yeah, I just was not into zombies and people killing each other. And I know you're good for a good zombie. I get that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I like it all. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just not into that.
That's okay. And I mean, like Alexander Breckenridge, who's Mel, she came from This Is Us, and that's a huge show. I mean,
it is.
She was fairly. I mean, her character, even though she did not play the character as a child, as a teenager, she played the adult version of that character, but that character was beloved from day one of the show. And,
exactly.
she was an integral part. I mean, people were campaigning for her and her boyfriend, ex-husband, whatever, on the show to get together. And I mean, how it ended and all of that. I mean, she came from, and she was on, Walking Dead. I mean, she's been busy too. She's been, both of them have been acting since they were like in their middle teens. 15. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They've both been busy. They both, and kind of funny little tidbit. He wasn't sure about doing the show. He was given, I guess his agents were like, we have this show we were thinking about. And like, oh, I don't know. It's like wholesome, like, I don't know. What do you think? Does character have enough depth? He's played a lot of different characters. He's actually in a series. He's in like, it's a third season of a series in New Zealand. And he's done shows. He's done series before. He's done movies before. And I think he was just like, I don't know, but they're like, come on, you got to try. You got to give it a whirl. And so he just said, okay, I'll do it. Now, Alexandra, she very integral in the story. She was a guest and wasn't like a full character. And she
Yeah.
she had 2 babies. Her kids are 15 months apart. I think her youngest was 8 months old. She was like, Mama got to work. So her agent gave her the script, and she was like, sure, let me give it a whirl. So the two of them kind of went into this. Okay, it's Netflix. Netflix has a habit of canceling shows after the first season, second season. Who knows if this is going to go? They, from what I've read in interviews both of them have done, they kind of put like everything into it. They're like, you know what? If we've only got 1 or 2 seasons, let's just go for it. Let's just play it out. Let's just do everything we can. Let's give it 110%. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. Who knows?
A slow start. Season 1 was slow. But by the time they got to season 2,
and they got picked up pretty quick. For season 2, they were like, "What? We're doing a season 2? What?"
Yeah, by season 2, I would say, because I was, at that point, I was part of the fan base, and online, a lot of people were so excited to see what season 2 was about.
Well, they cliffhanged the crap out of this show.
Right, they did. And
I couldn't have, by the way, I couldn't have stood waiting. Because it's like they film for 3 or 4 months in Vancouver. It's a location shot. Everybody has to pack up and go there for 3 or 4 months. They stay there. They do this show, and then everybody goes back to wherever they're from.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah, and she doesn't live in LA, and
no, she's in Georgia. He's sometimes in LA, sometimes in New Zealand, doing whatever. Yeah. Some people are in LA. There's a lot of Canadian actors in the show.
Yeah.
A lot of people have to go back to their lives. This is not like a network show back in the day when, they have shows like Grey's Anatomy and all these shows that they live where they work. People live where they work, and they film 8-9 months out of the year. They work down the street from where they live, or they're not going to get up and move somewhere because it's the whole year. They only have a couple months off, and then they get back at it again. This is very different. A lot of Netflix shows do that. Like, I think Stranger Things is another one. They film in a location, everybody goes there, and then they leave when it's done. It's a different situation, but Netflix was a good fit when they were looking for someone. I guess they tried to sell this to different networks and different options. When Robin Carr was approached, the writer of the books, she felt like Netflix was a good fit because it was a Hallmarky show, but it had edge. And she felt like Netflix was a good fit, and it worked. And here we are.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get to it. So here we are with the 3rd episode of the 1st season, Virgin River and Found. We start the episode with Mel, again, walking in on Lily breastfeeding Chloe. And the revelation is true. You are Chloe's mother. Lily's a little shocked. She's like, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. Like she was hungry. I had to do something. And Mel has to break the news to her that she called social services. And that's like, what does that mean? And Mel has to break the news that they're coming the next day. They're going to come get Chloe. And guess who walks in?
Doc. And he makes the assumption that Mel has done something to Lily to make Lily upset.
Right.
And now he has to break the news to Doc that Lily is Chloe's mother. And Doc now is...
He doesn't believe her.
Now he's pulling, basically, I would say he's pulling a Connie right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Jumping to conclusions, talk about their town, their people.
Yes, he's making a lot of assumptions.
Yes.
And he's like, you don't know what you're talking about. That's crazy. Like, you city people. You can't just jump to conclusions. She has to inform him that it's not, I'm not jumping to conclusions. Like, I realize you made up your mind about me before we even met. So who's jumping to conclusions here? Because it's not me. He's like, well, that was professional intuition. Like, okay, call it what you want. But she's like, look, Lily admitted to being Chloe's mother. I didn't jump to any conclusion. Like, she actually told me this is the situation. And he just can't believe it. It's like, your intuition is about as outdated as your office. She constantly, it's funny how she's constantly making digs at him about his age and how it's outdated and how
and
it's funny.
And at that point she tells him that, and then she walks out and he's left with his mouth hanging open.
I love that.
The look on And the look on his face
Because
that
he can't,
basically goes,
he can't escape that. I mean, if
yeah,
she told her,
yeah,
she's not lying. Like, why would you lie
no.
about that? That just doesn't make sense. It's the next
And we
morning.
love this scene.
This,
Because, well, I mean, I love it because it opens with Jack with no shirt on.
well,
I'm just
okay.
saying.
That's the only
uh,
part about this scene that I like. Can I say that?
That's true. I like that scene too.
Yeah, but that's the
I'm
only
just saying.
part about it that I like because first of all, he picks up his phone. Mel's calling him, but he doesn't take it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's wouldn't that be awkward? I mean, he didn't want to take. He was with Mel when he was making phone calls to which now we can assume was Charmaine, and
Well, oh, hold on. Charmaine is the one who called them on
that's what I'm
both
saying.
occasions.
They're talking on the phone, and he's kind of hush hush on the side. He doesn't. He
Right.
definitely does not want to pick up the phone while
No.
he's standing half naked in Charmaine's bedroom. Talk
Mm-hmm.
about awkward, right?
Yeah.
She's trying to talk him into coming back to bed. He cannot get out of there fast enough. Like, dude is like, I gotta go. I got stuff to do. I'm late. Preacher's waiting. I got the breakfast rush. Well, can't preacher open the bar? It's like, no, I gotta check in. And she's like doing everything she can. Yeah. Oh, my first client is until 9, I'll make you breakfast in bed. And he was like, yeah, no, I gotta go. Like, I feel like it's like written over his head that she should see in a neon sign, like, he's just not that into you. But what are you gonna do? She doesn't want to see that. She's blocking that out. Now, I'm sure, like everyone else, very aware that there's a Mel in town and very aware that Mel and him have ending time together. I have to assume, because it's a small town, that that's what's happening. Okay.
But we will learn more about why I feel that Charmaine doesn't know that.
Yes.
Later on.
Later. But for now, she's probably aware that there's this new chick in town and spending time with him is the best thing she can do. You got to reel him back in because he might be wandering eyes. So she says to him, next Friday, honey, after dinner, I can spend the night at your place. And he's like clueless. Like, what are you talking about? 2-year anniversary? Yeah, he didn't think they were doing anniversaries. So 2 years. So they've been doing whatever they're doing for 2 years.
They've been doing the Mamba for 2 years, and she's been counting the days, and he is clueless.
Yeah, he probably had no clue. He probably had no idea.
No, he's clueless. Because that's when he says we're doing anniversaries, because that's a man who has no idea that there was an anniversary to celebrate.
He probably had an idea about how long they were together, but not specific to a date. And she's like, oh, but I thought it would be nice. And he was like, yeah, I don't know about that. he just is like, well, things are nice. Why are we changing anything? Like things the way they are. And she's like, okay.
He's not really, what is the saying?
He's just not that into you. She's a little disappointed. You can see the look on her face.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you going to do? So now we're back at Doc's, and Doc and Hope are having it out. And he is pissed that she called social services. Mel, who is very strong, and she will do what she needs to do for the best thing for her patient. She will do what's in the best interest of her patient. And they're arguing. It's like, everybody back to your corners. Hope found out, because Doc probably told her, that Lily is the baby's mom. And she's like, okay, we got to keep this under wraps. We can't let the gossip mill find out about it. And I'm thinking to myself, she's part of the gossip mill. But okay, if she can keep a secret, then we should be okay. So she's worried because Lily's not acting right. Something is wrong. She even says something is wrong with her. I mean, at her age, having a secret pregnancy and then giving up her baby, this is not the Lily that everybody knows. So clearly something is wrong with her. And Mel, who is a midwife, and she knows, she senses that it's probably postpartum depression. Of course, Hope, who knows her, has probably known her, 20 years. She's like, but she has never been depressed. Well, Mel, who this is her job to know. She assumes that if that's the case, this can come without warning. I mean, I don't know if you've dealt with any moms with, postpartum depression, but
Yeah, I've had several moms with postpartum depression.
yeah.
And the thing about it is, as we find out from here, is that not only is that she has had this child later on in life, but we find out that Lily's husband has recently, not too long, died.
Mm-hmm.
And that may have been a contributing factor to her giving up the baby.
Yeah.
Because not only does she have a newborn, she's also at an age where women her age don't normally have babies.
Right.
But she also has to run a farm.
Yes.
And these are all factors that contribute to the stress
Yeah.
and the mental health of having postpartum depression.
Yeah.
So that's why for Hope, it's so not Lily, because
Right.
this is not
the Lily she knows. Exactly. Doc says that if social services come, that she's probably going to get in temporary foster care, which means she's going to have foster parents who may bond with her, who may want to adopt her. And then Lily could lose Chloe. She may not be able to get her back. This person is probably going to be there that afternoon, and they've got to figure out, either talk to Lily, or if she's not going to cooperate, they got to figure something out. Hope, she's like, she's got grown children, maybe we can talk to them. And that's a possibility, because that is a thing. It's called kinship placement. They, a family member can take guardianship of the baby. But I guess Doc tried to see Lily. Everybody does everything so early in the morning. Isn't it funny? It's like 7 a.m. and everybody's already been to visit this person and gone over here and done that. And
well, you notice it's a small town, so basically everything's probably closed down by 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I know.
And everybody's in bed by 8, 9 o'clock. So
they're up at 5 a.m. running them.
They're up at 5. Because it's like it's the same thing. It's like Mel was running.
Yeah.
And which we know she runs early in the morning. And what's Jack doing at the clinic at that hour of the morning?
Who the heck knows?
Tell me. What's he doing there? And he finds the baby on the porch.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It's just like,
and then they're like, social services doesn't open for another hour. Well, that's probably 8 a.m. So that's like 6:30 that they're having this conversation. Like it's the middle of the afternoon. I think it's so funny.
And social services doesn't open at 8 a.m. No government office opens at 8 a.m. You and I both know that.
Yeah.
They open at 9, but not at 8.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. So they're trying to figure out what to do. Doc went over to talk to Lily. She doesn't want anything to do with anybody. She doesn't want anybody involved, family or otherwise. And this is where we find out about her husband. So Mel's like, well, what about her husband? Because, we've seen Lily and everybody seems to be married or what have you, but there's no husband. And that's when Hope shares the news that he died about 6 months before. And then Mel is like, oh, okay. That makes sense. She's isolated, limited social support. Somebody in that position with depression, it's not good. And she offers to go talk to her. Doc, haven't you done enough? like seriously? So the only person.
Again, an ass.
Yes. And he's like the only person that is able to care for it, because Hope's like, I'll do it. It's like, no, you can't. You have to go through all these steps and you have to get certified. It's too much. We don't have time for that. The only person that could take custody of her is a medical person. Doc, not going to do that. Like they've already said, he's not good with tiny humans.
He's barely good with adults.
Yeah, he's definitely not good with tiny humans. And I know a wonderful healthcare provider. Yeah. Doesn't say a word, gives them both a look, turns around and walks out. I'm going to go check on the baby. No. She hits Doc on the head with a book. She's like, you need to rehire her right now. He is not having it. But you know what? She's good for him because she gets him out of his comfort zone. Mel is good for him. But she's like, if Lily loses that baby because of you, it's all going to be all your fault.
But what I love about it is the way she does it. It's like she points in his face and she basically says, if Lily loses that baby, it's all on you. Daring him to make this worse.
Yes.
He thinks his life is bad. She's going to make
it so much worse. Oh my God, so much worse.
You can tell by the look on his face. He's going like,
do I really want to do that?
Yeah, I do not want to get on Hope's bad side because I can tell this is going to be bad for me.
And it's been said, if Hope, I think Jack will say it later, But if Hope is on your side, if she's in your corner, she's like
Yes.
1,000% on your side. But
Yeah. It's 100%. Yeah.
you do not want to get
Yeah.
on her bad side.
No.
No. So now we're at the cabin, and you know how Jack took ownership of fixing it up, and he's trying to rush this, and Ricky's helping him at $20 an hour. And they're knocking walls down, and I mean, who knows what they're doing. So he's like, Jack, are you all right? He's like, we got to rush. We got to get this done. And he goes, because we need Mel to stay. And he's like, Virgin River needs her to stay. She's like, yeah. And then he calls her a hot doctor.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, she's a nurse practitioner. You be respectful. It's funny. It's like, and that windowsill is still crooked. It's so funny. So, Jack is just like, he has taken out all of his frustration on that wall. I mean, he is tearing that thing down.
You know why he's doing this? Because he just did the horizontal with you know who, and he's conflicted because of how he feels from Mel. So he is taking out his frustration
on this poor wall.
This is why he in the state that he's in.
Oh yeah. And then they start talking about this baby that's abandoned. And Ricky's like, oh, yeah, I heard about it. My grandmother heard it from somebody in Clear River. It's like, oh, the gossip mill has already made it to Clear River. Yeah, she got a call and da-da-da-da-da. And he's like, oh, word travels fast. It's like, well, what do you expect? And he's like, yeah. And she sat me down and talked to me about being a gentleman with the ladies. It's like, well, your grandmother knows, you know, you stay out of trouble. You don't want to be. Can we talk to about that hot doctor? Oh, no. You be respectful. Yeah, but she's extremely. And it's like, no. You be respectful. But I mean, it seems like Ricky, he needs guidance. Like Jack has sort of taken the role as like a father figure, which I think is very sweet. And Jack is off to like, I got to get out of here. I got to go back to the bar.
And we can tell from this relationship between Jack and him is that he doesn't have he seems to live with his grandmother.
Yes. Because that's the only person we've mentioned
right
for him.
We don't know about his mother or his father or his grandfather. All we know so far.
Yes, we've only mentioned his grandmother. And we haven't met her yet. So we just have heard about her.
Right. And and we know that he lives with his grandmother. And that's the extent of what we know so far.
Mm-hmm. So here we are at Jack's bar, and Mel, she doesn't have the baby with her, but she walks in and he's like, wow, you look serious. And she's like, hey, you look sweaty. Helping out a friend. The man is everywhere. Can I say that? Mm-hmm. He is like helping person with this and over here doing that. And he's fixing up the thing and he's over at the bar. Like,
thinking an alien split him up in several pieces because the man is everywhere.
He's everywhere and he's always busy. Like from morning till night, he is always somewhere doing something. And you notice everybody always comes to him and he's in the middle of everything. So it's like that's why he knows what's going on all the time. He knows where everybody is, what everybody's doing. I mean, and he's not the gossip person. It's like he just holds all the information, but he knows all the information.
Yep.
So Mel walks in and he's asking, well, where's Chloe? And it's like, well, Paige from the bakery truck volunteered to watch her. It's so nice to live in a town where everybody pitches in like that. That would be really nice. Because sometimes people now, they don't even know their next door neighbor.
I don't know my next door neighbor.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's why I said that. Because I know you don't know your next door neighbor.
I don't know my next door neighbor. All I know is that it's a she. And she's very loud and noisy, but thank God I'm not there half the time when she's there. But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about small towns. I mean, I've heard from people especially people who live in the Midwest,
right?
Who've moved from the Midwest and have come to California for whatever reason, who talk about
the small town.
They come from a small town that has several thousand people in it, and they have one traffic light.
I know,
in this town, and I'm like, my mind is like.
I mean, I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up in Delaware, and I mean,
too.
It wasn't a small town. I mean, there were small towns nearby. I mean, one girl I went to grade school with lived on a farm, and that was probably as close to Virgin River area that I could think of, but. I mean, I lived in the suburbs, neighborhoods and, convenience stores and normal stuff, but nothing like this.
But when you live in a town where there's one traffic light, that's small town living, girl.
Well, interestingly enough, I think it's about 5 years ago. Alex Breckenridge and her husband moved to Georgia. They live in a town, she says, in interviews that she's done and articles I've read, that it's very much like Virgin River. I think there's like 500 people in her town. Her kids go to like a one-room schoolhouse type thing. Like everybody knows everybody. And I was like, how funny. She goes, yeah, I'm kind of living the Virgin River life. I thought that was funny. So she doesn't really get away from it when she goes back home. She kind of just gets a little more of it.
Yeah.
Which is great. I think it's great. I think, the big city, she lived in LA for a very long time. Moving to someplace
a lot
quieter.
of stars don't want to raise
A
their
lot,
children.
yes.
A lot of them. I mean, that's why, you have people like, I believe it was Meryl Streep who raised her children in Jersey.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
A lot of people move out of the big cities.
Exactly. Come in for your premieres, and then you
come in to do your movies. You go on, on location or whatever, and you go back to your life. And that way, the kids. I agree with that. I think it's a really smart idea.
Yeah, LA is not suited for children.
That's why I'm really glad that I live like an hour south, so I can go there because I am not a city girl. Oh my gosh, I am so not a city girl. I don't mind going. I hate driving in LA. I really do, but I don't mind going. But I'm glad I get to leave.
Yeah.
And I'm close enough I can go, but I don't need to stay there.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah. I agree with you.
Just like you in San Francisco.
Oh, I hate San Francisco.
I know, right? It's like LA. Same thing.
It's just, the minute somebody says we have to go to San Francisco,
you're like, no.
I get
hives.
The most dreaded feeling in my entire body.
Yeah.
It basically goes, do we really have to go to San Francisco? Yeah. And they're like, yeah, that's the only place. And it's like, oh.
I know.
I just don't want to go there.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. I mean.
I make my husband drive.
And it's nothing against the people are fine.
It's a beautiful city. I love San Francisco. I just don't want to drive in it. And I don't want to be there that long.
I don't want to be there that long. It's just like, no. Let me get what I need to get and then leave.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, anyway.
As we digress. Okay. So here we have Mel. She's back at the bar. And Paige, like we said, is watching the baby. Because it's a small town and everybody pitches in and everybody helps everybody. And that's just how we are. She's not eating any better. She still hates the bottle. She's barely holding her weight up. She's hungry and cranky. Jack is like, oh, you must be exhausted, with work and the baby. And she's like, oh, well, I got fired. So I'm not really working. I'm just watching the baby. Because he's on her side. He agrees with what she did. And he's like, I can talk to Doc for you. She's like, oh, no. Thank you for offering. I will handle it. This is my problem. You need to take care of yourself. You need to eat something. She's like, no, I got to go pick up Chloe. Let me fix you some food. How about if I take you and Chloe out? We'll get some fresh air. And she's like, where exactly is this? Don't worry about it. I'm going to pick you up in an hour. I'm going to pick you and Chloe up in an hour. She's like, Jack, I'm really not in the mood for a surprise. He's like, nope. I'm going to pick you up in an hour. And she's giving him the look.
The look.
She's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
She's thinking. She's not sure, but she's thinking. And so she's back at her B&B room. Her and Chloe are chilling, and she is still trying to feed this poor baby. This little tiny baby who is hungry and not cooperating. And now we have a flashback.
It is where Mel, we hear her grunting and groaning, and then we see that she is in labor with her husband, Mark, next to her. And she's basically now asking for an epidural. And the doctor tells her she can't have one. It's too late. And she's like, what do you mean I can't have one?
And she's like, have you ever been in labor?
And she's like, the doctor said, you know how this works.
But you wanted a natural childbirth. And she's like, screw that. I don't want it now. She's yelling at him. And he's just like, whatever you say, honey. It's fine. She's like, have you ever tried to squeeze a watermelon out? And he's apologizing. I think it's cute. He's apologizing. I'm sorry.
He apologizes because at this point, she says, this is all your fault.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, labor. Oh, the labor. And that's when the phone rings. She gets startled. And guess who it is? Her sister.
None other than Big Sister.
We're on another round.
Yep.
Yes. And she's like, why didn't you call me back? I was so worried. Now, her sister obviously lives in LA.
Very palatious.
Very nice place. She lives in a very, very nice place. And
Mm-hmm.
she's asking her what is going on. Is that she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm thinking about taking care of the baby and fostering." And what do you mean someone else? What are you doing? This is a huge mistake and in this point in your life and I mean, she just will not
And
let up.
right. And you notice every conversation she's had, what, three conversations
Yes.
with her sister, and everyone starts off fine, and then it
Oh,
goes
it goes
from
downhill real quick.
just it doesn't get any better because it literally is just a disaster.
Well, she
Because
keeps trying to tell her that everything she's doing is wrong. Well,
exactly.
you shouldn't be doing this, and she goes, but this may be the only way that this baby can stay in town, because now she knows that the mother is in Virgin River, and in
Yeah,
order
right.
to keep the baby in Virgin River, this may be the only way to do it, because once that kid
Right.
gets into foster care somewhere else, they'll probably take her to Clear River or somewhere else. That's it, she could never be back. And
Right.
she's trying to explain this to Joey, and Joey is not
It's
hearing
not
it. She is not hearing it.
she is not having it.
And then she
Because
says, I was there
right.
with you from start to finish. I helped you pick up the pieces. Like she doesn't remember what happened in her own life. She's just pissed that her sister keeps reminding her, as she says, reminding her of how broken she is.
Mm-hmm. He again hangs up the phone on her
Yep.
sister.
Yeah.
The
I
amount of
think
hang
this is their dynamic. It's like I call you, you call me, we start off nice, and I hang up on you. It's just it's kind of sad. She's just looking down at this little baby, just telling the baby, you know what, you're on my side, aren't you? Like, of course she is. The baby smiles. She's very cute.
adorable baby.
Cute. I'm sure it's twins. They always use twins.
Oh yeah, this is definitely a twin situation. Yeah,
So now we're back at the bar. We're back at the bar. Jack is cutting bread. And Hope walks in, and it's like, oh, what are you doing? Wait a minute. Preacher let you in the kitchen? I thought you were banned since the grease fire of 2012. He's like, oh, no. I'm going to take Mel out for lunch. Both working on trying to keep her in town. She's like, what are you making? And he's like, oh, peanut butter and jelly and chips and soda. And she's like, oh, good Lord. Like, you can't make important decisions with peanut butter. Are you kidding? So she boots him out of the kitchen.
Now, I have to say, I don't relate to a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because I realize it's a very American thing.
And you're also allergic to nuts. So, like...
Yeah, but even when I was not allergic to nuts.
Ham and cheese, still not a gourmet lunch that you're trying to get somebody to stay in town with. Like, it's good Hope walked in.
I guess so.
Because, honestly, I don't know that she'd still be there if she had to eat peanut butter and jelly and chips. Like... We could speculate. I would think that I don't think it would have done it.
It's not a gourmet style.
It's not
lunch,
saying please stay in town. It doesn't scream please stay in town. It really doesn't.
All right.
Now we're back in the front of the kitchen behind the bar, and Brady is throwing lemons in bowls. He's
okay. So as someone who used to work in the restaurant
business, food industry,
this made me cringe so much. I could see where Preacher was coming from, because at this point I just want to slap Brady and go, what are you thinking?
Right?
You know what I mean? I cringed at this scene. But anyway, go ahead.
I agree. And I mean, Brady could have used tongs. He could have put a glove on, because granted, when Preacher says what he says, like, the reason we put them behind the bar and we hand them to people is so that everybody's dirty hands aren't touching the lemons. And I know you don't like rules, but this is how we do things. And this is, I run a business. This is how I run it. I'm very particular about my kitchen.
Yes.
This is how we're doing things. And Brady just doesn't give a shit.
No, he doesn't.
He really, he thinks he's above all of this.
Yeah.
Like, busting tables and cutting up lemons is like beneath him. So he doesn't care. I mean, it's simple. He thinks he's made for better things.
Yes.
He's not happy about this.
No, he's not happy.
And even the guy at the bar is just looking at the both of them going, okay, you guys are arguing about lemons. Like, really? I just want to drink my coffee in peace, and you're arguing about lemons. It's okay. So he basically tells Brady, you're just lazy. Yeah. We have a system. This is the way we're doing things. Yeah, the two of them, clearly the animosity is strong. And the guy at the bar still just like not saying a word, but man, looks of 1,000 words. So Preacher sits down and he's asking, so we have Christopher, little boy, and his mom, Paige, and they're talking about whipping up some pancakes. Christopher help, which is fine. I mean, is that child labor? Like, is that sanitary? Do you want your kid in the kitchen?
It.
I think it's
Well,
sweet.
now remember, this is Virgin River, so certain things will slide.
Yeah.
Because in normal
No.
circumstances, they don't really let children behind the counter.
Right.
But if you're running a family business, a lot of the times you'll
A
see
lot,
young children.
yes. Bussing
So
tables and,
yeah,
bringing drinks out. Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
But honestly, I think obviously, Preacher's a little sweet on Paige.
yes,
And
he is.
sometimes you get to the mother, you go through the kid, and if you're sweet to the kid, the mother might. He knows what he's doing. He seems awkward though, Preacher, which I get from backstory, and we find out later that he's not had a lot of women in his life, so he's a little awkward. But I mean, I think he's sweet on Paige. He's very. I mean, he's a sweet guy. He's just a big, sweet guy. He's just like, it's towering. You look at him and you're like, oh my God, he fought in a war and he probably carried guns and, but he's just like shy and sweet. I like Preacher.
Yeah.
This kid doesn't seem to have a dad. We don't know, but we've not seen him. Another person who's kind of stepping in and kind of like taking him under his wing a little bit, like, come flip pancakes with me and hang out with me. And I think it's cool. Him and Paige have a little conversation, because now that he is, I guess Paige provides bakery goods for the bar. In order to pay her, he's asking to write a check. Like, who should he write it to? Her, the bakery truck? She's like, oh, no. I don't do checks. Can we just stick with cash? And he was like, well, my accountant, we got to have a better record. And there's this whole conversation. So clearly, Paige is hiding something if she only wants to deal with cash. I mean, what business doesn't have a checking account? What person doesn't have a checking account? Preacher's like, okay, well, we'll have to figure this out. And so she's just trying to come up with any way possible that there is no check to be written. She just wants to deal with cash.
She doesn't have the thing is, she doesn't have a checking account.
She doesn't. That's what I said. It's very weird. It's very weird that a business or an individual would not have a checking account. And he's not come across this before.
Right.
Who doesn't have a checking account? She's trying to get out of this conversation as fast as she can. And yes, she did promise that he could flip pancakes with Preacher, but yeah, I don't know. So Connie shows up and she's like, I need to talk to you right now. Did you hear about that abandoned baby? And Christopher, what abandoned?
And Connie doesn't even flinch. This is the whole thing.
Nope.
She keeps talking because at this point, she makes that comment. She hears what Christopher says about the abandoned.
At that point, she should have stopped talking. She should have stopped talking.
Exactly. But that's why I said she doesn't even flinch, because in Connie's mind, she's got to say what she's got to say. Right. And that's it. So that bothers me about Connie. That, come on.
She could have pulled him aside and had a conversation with him.
Exactly.
I mean, there's certain things you don't say in front of kids. Whatever.
It's like,
it's Connie. She clearly doesn't have a filter.
No, filter? That doesn't even exist in Connie's world.
So Paige is like, oh, we got to go. That's our cue. Christopher's very disappointed. He doesn't get to flip pancakes. Now Connie has Preacher all to herself. She just wants to order a tuna melt with extra cheese. Really? So out of the kitchen comes Hope with a picnic basket. Look at that picnic basket.
Yes.
She's like, you keep Melontown and we're square. So he grabs the basket and he is off. Now Connie, who has to go talk to everybody, she's like, okay, so have you heard anything? What about the
411?
Yeah, what's the 411? And have you talked to people at the pot farm? If someone we knew had a baby, then we would have known about it. And so is, and the sewing circle. And so she's, oh my gosh. Hope is like, okay, we need to figure this out quick, because Connie is on the case. And the way her gossip mill works, it's going to be everywhere. Hope is like, have you talked to Lily? What's going on? And he's like, I don't know. I'm worried. She's not doing well. And
but what's interesting, what's good about this is that he realizes,
yes,
at this point,
because he can't do anything. He's tried.
Right. He's out of his league.
He is so out of his element.
He's not dealt with anybody with postpartum. I
And if
find,
he has, it's very limited.
very exactly. So he's not, he doesn't know what to do with a severe case of postpartum,
Mm-hmm.
and so that now he feels like he's out of his league. He doesn't know what to do, and of course, Hope
Yes.
drives in,
Yep. She
and
drives that nail in a
he,
little bit further and says, "You
oh
know who
yes,
knows what to do? A midwife."
exactly
Shocker.
right.
We have one in town.
We have one of those.
And you need to ask her. And he was like, "Oh, but she does not respect my authority." It's like, yeah, well, she thinks for herself, and that used to be a quality you admire. And that makes him think
Yeah.
that. And he's like, I mean, it's hard for him. He's not
Oh,
a,
yeah.
yeah,
But at that point, he knows he messed up
yeah,
because he's out of his league.
yep,
The person who can help him, he's just fired.
yep.
And
And she's
basically,
calling him on it all.
exactly.
Loving every minute of it, by the way.
Yeah, she's basically said, now what are we going to do about that situation?
Yeah. So now we are at the spot, the fresh air that Jack talked about. Yes, let's have some fresh air and some lunch.
And
They're in this.
lovely.
Oh my God, the scenery again, beautiful. I mean, it's even a
And
little brown and because it's winter, but
yeah, but the thing about it is, Jack builds a fire.
Of course he does.
The baby's asleep.
There's a blanket laid out. There's food.
Right. And he says this karmic exterior is just an act, as far as her being all she's feeling.
Well, she says to him, so this is, your karmic exterior. And he goes, it's just an act. He goes, oh, it's well rehearsed habit. and she's like, oh, I know it well because in the ER, because you can't look like you're stressed out because the patients get freaked out. And he thinks that's funny.
True.
He's like, oh, get a peek behind the curtain, huh? And she's like, well, what are you talking about? He says, oh, you seem cool and collected. And she's like, no, that's, no. He said, okay, then you're confident. He says, no, definitely not that. He's like, oh, really? You moved to a new town by yourself in the middle of nowhere and head to head with the crustiest boss in town. That's impressive. Oh, and then she's looking at him like, oh, is that what you think of me? Like this is the longing glares.
Mm-hmm.
They've begun going in her direction. Before it was only once in a while. Now I mean he's always looking at her, but now she's like,
She's like, yeah, he's a nice drink. Oh, and there's that look where they're both looking at each other.
Yep.
It's like an intense, and he's got this the blue eyes seem to sparkle even more, and he's got that smothering look on his face that says, come in, baby girl, come in, I'm here waiting for you, you know.
And she's like, impressive. Is that what you think of me? Yep, he went for it. Exactly. He went for it.
It's just that look on his face, and he's just like, oh,
and
at that point and then she looks at him with the same kind of smile on her face, and it's like, you guys.
But then he breaks it by saying, oh, I can't take credit for the lunch. That was Hope. Like, really?
Yeah. And she says, oh my God, she's everywhere, isn't she? And he's like, yep.
Yeah, and that's when Mel finds out that Hope told Jack about Lily. Yeah. And she's a little pissed because patient confidentiality, you're not supposed to talk about it. Like, Doc shouldn't have told Hope. Hope shouldn't have told Jack. And of course, it's a small town. And Jack's like, yeah, but you have to understand, like, she's doing it to help. It's like, she's like, no, this you're not supposed to do that.
And that's the thing. Mel as yet, she's still in the city mode order, because in her mind, as someone who is a professional and has worked in the city, you do things according to what the state laws are.
Right.
But when you live in a small town, those laws don't always apply.
The laws bend a little differently.
Yeah. There's a saying that goes, let's not break the law. Let's just bend it.
Yeah, and they bend it a lot in Virgin Aurora.
Exactly. That's exactly what's going on here. So she's having a hard time with that because for her, that's not a concept that she is familiar with because she hasn't lived in a small town.
Yeah, she's been there, what would you say? Maybe a week? Yeah.
maybe a week.
Now
And the
that's
thing
one
of
thing about this show. The timeline.
oh, the timeline is so slow,
Oh my god. I
so
feel like
slow.
we're living every moment with them, which I must say, developing relationships, you are literally watching it happen.
Yeah,
Like every moment. Like you feel like you've been there for almost every moment,
yeah.
which I love and hate.
Yeah, it's true. They don't, things don't speed up as well as you like them to speed up.
And it's funny
Um
when it goes when more than a day passes, they'll have like 3 days later, 10 days later. It's like, oh, it's not the next day. Because it seems like go to sleep, wake up the next day, go to sleep, wake up the next. Like I feel like I'm living literally day by day by day with everybody.
yes.
It's been maybe a week, 10
Yeah.
days tops that she's been in
Yeah.
town.
Yeah. And so
Wow. Yeah, I know it's
and
crazy.
now, yeah, and now now she's telling him that she's thinking of becoming Chloe's temporary guardian.
And that will be poignant later. That this
Yes.
conversation is poignant at a later date. He's shocked, like, wow, really? And she's like, yeah, like, whoa, really? Yeah. She's just looking at him going, well, I mean, it's the only chance that she has to stay in town. And yeah, that's a big responsibility. She knows, but she had no idea what this job was going to be like.
Oh,
Like,
please.
seriously. And
The
of
mi-
course, he says
the minute,
sometimes the best jobs are the ones you don't know you're getting into.
boy, did she get that right.
Oh,
Because I mean,
yeah.
from the time she wrecked that car until now, it's just been a whirlwind for this
Never
woman.
would have imagined in a million years that she'd be in the position she's in right now. There's no way.
No.
She would have never known.
And I'll be honest with you, if I was Mel, the
Most
minute I
people would
had
have
to
ran.
deal with the minute I had to deal with Mr. Curmudgeon, my butt would have been out of there, and I would have been asking for my year's pay because she broke the contract, and I'd have gotten the hell out of Dodge.
Um,
Now,
maybe
don't
you would.
get me wrong.
I might have stuck around just to see what's going on with Jack.
Well, that's where I was going next because I'm thinking if he looked at me the way he's looking at her,
I think I might have to stick around and see where this goes.
maybe we stick around a little bit more, yes, to see where that may go.
Yeah.
Because, I don't mind doing the horizontal mamba with that one.
Yeah, but we're clearly far from there. But that's okay, because the looks and the gazes that
Oh, they're pretty good.
yeah, that's
They are pretty good.
so
Yes.
she's like, this I don't know, this job was never what I thought it was, and he's like, yeah, well, when I was 18 and I signed up for the Marines, I didn't know what I was getting into either. No
Yeah.
clue, not a clue. I mean, he clearly stayed in the Marines for 20 plus years. He said now it's become a part of him. It's part of who he is.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, yeah, Virgin River is never going to be part of my DNA. And he was like, never say never. Because he's still working on her. He's a slow burn. Just give him a chance.
Yep.
I mean, this place is just beautiful. And she's standing there just looking out. And then we do a flashback.
And this is where we should warn people that this is a very traumatic scene.
Yeah.
That about
It's
to happen.
very sad.
It's very sad. It's so gut wrenching. And I've had a client or two that have been in this position, and it's very hard to understand what it's like to carry a baby for this length of time.
Like she was literally in labor.
Right, when this happened.
Yeah.
So we find out from Mel.
This flashback.
So Mel is in bed and she has the look of absolute
dread
trauma on her face. And
Mark looks like he's been crying. Like he clearly has been
and
crying.
He's just been devastated by whatever it is about to happen.
And he says, Mel, do you want to hold her?
Right. And we find out that Mel and Mark have lost their baby.
And she's like, what did I do wrong? And he's a doctor and he understands. He says it was a placenta abruption. Nothing anyone could have done.
Right. And at this point, what almost happened was they almost lost not only the baby, but Mel as well.
Right.
She is at this point where
she's distraught.
Right. And she wishes she had died instead of her baby.
Yeah, like they saved he says, we almost lost you. And she's like, they saved the wrong one.
Right. They saved the wrong person. She is just inconsolable at this point and doesn't know what to do. And he is just trying his best to console her. and it's not working. It is not working on any mints
And he's like,
because
I need you, and we're going to get through this. And she just wants her baby. She just wants her baby. And he wants her too, but she can't do that. I mean, it's just crying, it's
yeah,
just
and she
so
says,
sad.
I can't do this, and she's crying. And as she says, I can't do this,
She
we
must
get
have
back.
said it out loud while she's
Right. So
standing
while
there.
she's standing there, she comes back to reality, and Jack says, he says,
You
she
can do
says,
this.
what? She can't, and he says, you can do this. She says, you don't know me very well.
And he's like, yeah, but I know that you fight for what you believe in. And that if Chloe gets sent to social services, that you'll find another way. This is who you are. You're going to help in any way you can because you're relentless when it comes to helping people. The
Yeah.
baby starts to cry, and the baby's eating. The baby's finally taking the bottle. And the both of them
Mm-hmm.
are just like in awe that this kid is finally, he's like, whoa, look at that. She's like, wow, it's incredible. And he's looking at her like she's incredible. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
never say never.
Like good fresh air to help a baby eat.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Exactly. So he had a good idea. And the baby's finally eating. So we have the more scenery. Love the scenery. It's like a
mm-hmm.
drone shot from them sitting there, and love that. Now they're back at Doc's, and Mel is meeting up with Doc and Hope in the kitchen. And Hope is like, Doc has something to tell you. Of course, Jack's carrying the baby. I swear they're like an old married couple at this point now. He's carrying the baby. She's got the diaper bag. They're walking in together. It's so funny. She's like, yes. And she's like, Vernon Mullins, speak. She's so funny. She orders him around. Oh my God, all the time. So he can't get the words out. Like, okay. And he's beating around the bush and this thing with Lily's depression. It's a tough nut to crack. And he's stalling. And she's like, okay, look, I will talk to her if that's what you're trying to say. And he's, well, I don't think you can make anything worse. And it's like, she's just laughing at him. Like, are you kidding me? I don't need your approval. And he is like, look,
he's
you
now
should.
blaming her,
Yep.
saying that, if you hadn't called social services
We
in the
wouldn't be
first
in this
place,
position.
his prediction. And it's like, excuse me.
And she's like, I am not gonna apologize for doing my job.
Apologize.
And then he insults her, and Jack steps right in, and he's like, hey, we are all here to help Lily. That's what we're here to do. Hope steps in, and she's like, look, social services is on their way. You, Vernon, you stay here. We are going to go talk to Lily. And she's like, I love it. She says, so help me, you're jangling my last nerve. Just do as you're asked. He's going to wait for the social services.
He's going to wait for it. He's got no other choice.
Well, she's not giving him a choice.
Exactly. It's not like Hope's telling him, like
she's not asking.
She's not asking. She is not asking. She's basically telling him, you caused this mess. Now you're going to sit here and wait for social services.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're at Lily's house
and Mel knocks on the door, and Lily is very apprehensive. And she's like, look, I'm tired. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just, go away. And she's like, look, I know what you're going through. She's like, I left my baby. She's like, look, what you're going through, it doesn't have anything to do with you being a mother, being a good mother or whatever. This is a hormonal imbalance. You're not right. You're sick, and we want to help you. The good news is there's things that you can do to feel better. And she just is like, no, I'm not a good person. Just, let somebody else take the baby. And she's like, no, come on, let's see if we can work this out. And she's like, I'm not a young woman. And with Buck gone, her husband has passed away, and the farm, which she barely can take care of herself. Her kids have moved on. There are 4 grown kids that are gone.
None of them live in the same town with her.
No,
they don't live anywhere in the
exactly.
same town. She's on her own.
And Mel's like, can you do something for me? And she freaks out when she sees Jack holding the baby and Hope. And she's like, oh my God, the whole town must know. And she's like, no. They're just worried about you. Everybody's worried about you. Just the 2 of them are the only ones that know. And she's like, what? What is it that you want? And she's like, look, if you're going to give up your daughter, this is the last chance you're going to have to spend time with her before you say goodbye. And she thinks about it and is like, okay, yeah, I guess so. And she lets them in. She's in a tough spot. Postpartum depression is like ruling her life right now.
That's a tough thing for women who who suffer from it, because there are two extremes with postpartum to some degree, where some women feel like they're going to hurt their baby. And so that's why they feel that they need to be away from their baby because they don't want
Right.
to hurt their baby. And then you have people like Lily's situation, where she just doesn't feel she has it within her to
Right.
take care of her baby.
Right.
So you have that other extreme.
Yeah.
So it's such a hard place
Mm-hmm.
for women as far as that's concerned. And then you have mothers who feel like they're not going to bond with their children, or their child's not bonding with them.
Right.
And then they have that's the just circle of affairs as far as that's concerned.
Well, and with Lily being without a husband, by herself, you know, without anybody knowing about it, that's, you know, even her friends aren't, except for Hope, no one knows. So
that's
she's very isolated, and that's a scary place to be. So
the fact that she had gone for 6, you know, her husband died.
Yeah, she probably found out she was pregnant after he passed away, because they said 6 months ago. And so she was 4 months pregnant when he passed away.
And she her husband probably did know, but the point was,
maybe
he died. He may, and then you know, she isolated herself, and nobody saw her. What I think is even scarier,
she had the baby.
She had the baby by herself
at home. Yep, and held it and kept her for 3 weeks, because that's what Mel said. She's about 3 weeks old when they found her.
The trauma of that again, is that, can you imagine being alone giving birth to your baby?
Oh goodness!
Oh my goodness, that is just
scary.
Even for well-experienced mothers who
she's had 4 kids. I mean, by the fifth one, they just walk out, right?
Right, but it's still
it's scary.
So many things could have gone wrong because of her age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that, I think, is even itself is also traumatizing. So back to
so Preacher is now driving up to the bakery truck. Paige is there, and he is picking up an order
of pies
or something. Yeah, she's like, "Oh, something wrong with pies?" Oh no, he's not picking up an order. He's saying that the strawberry pie was a big hit. Everybody loves it. I mean, she must make great things. He just felt bad about their conversation earlier about the whole check thing. And so she's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. You know, I'll figure something out. See if I can find a third party. I don't know. Just, you know, whatever." And he was like, "Look, if you're willing to go through that much trouble, then we'll just keep things the way they are. Clearly, it means a lot to you." And so she, of course, is very appreciative, because something's going on with her, that she doesn't want a checking account, that she's trying to do everything. And he tries to make her feel better, like, "Oh, my mama always said keep your bills in the mattress for in the case of emergency." So she gives him some cookies, and he's like, "Thanks." He's just it's like he's so awkward. It's like he's a teenager, right? He's so cute.
He's like, "Are we good?" You know.
Yeah, and so Christopher walks up, and he's like, "Hey, little dude," and they have the like secret handshake, and he's like, "Hey, can I help in the kitchen tomorrow?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm no trouble at all." And he's like, "Oh, well, I could use an extra set of hands." And he's like, "But you could do me a favor. You could help me prep right now." And so he's like so excited, because he couldn't help with pancakes the day before. He was like, "Yeah, let's go." So he takes Christopher, and they're off to go prep in the kitchen. It's like his little buddy. Because I think Christopher's about, 8? Would you guess?
Yeah, I would say he's about an 8-9-year-old, somewhere around there. Look on her face.
I know.
Worry.
She's nervous.
She's very nervous.
She keeps him very close. So there's a story there.
Oh, yeah, very close.
Yeah.
So we're back at Lily's farm.
Yep. Hope is chatting with Lily, and she needs some time to talk to Lily. And so she asks Jack to take Mel and go walk around for a bit. You know, give us a minute. Let us talk.
Because that's her best friend. They've been friends for a long
20
time.
plus years. Yeah.
Right. So the fact is that Hope is hoping to use her friendship to talk some sense into Lily at this point. And she can't do that if Jack and Mel are standing outside the door,
like watching, because they were literally looking through the window looking at them, and it's just like, okay, we can't get anything done if you two are staring at us, so go take a walk. And so Jack's like, "Come on, we'll walk the farm." So they're taking a walk, and she's like, that's when we find out that, you know, when Buck died, a lot of the people who helped on the farm, that worked on the farm, left. And people came and tried to help, but I mean, Lily put a stop to it after a certain point because she didn't want to take charity from anybody. But obviously, the farm is too big for her to run by herself. And when Buck passed away, she was just heartbroken. None of the
Yeah.
kids stayed. They're living their own lives. This is where we have a little conversation. It's like it's always funny how like Jack will say something, Mel will say something, and then he always tends to like show her a different perspective, makes her think about it in a different way. So he's like, yeah, well, I didn't, people don't want to, burden her. And he's like, yeah, but isn't it helping someone you love? Like, isn't that what you should do?
And do with the
you know,
people you love. Exactly.
and she's like, but it's like an obligation. It's like, no, but it's like an opportunity. When you help someone, it's not an obligation, And she's like, yeah, but then the person might feel weak. And he's like, yeah, but here's a different way to look at it. That's why your family and friends should be there to help you get stronger. And this is very much related to her. When she lost her baby, she probably felt weak, didn't want to ask for help, had her own postpartum depression.
Yeah, and the fact that, she had her sister there, and I'm sure her sister tried to help, and
but not in a way she felt was
right.
needed, because she didn't look at it as getting help. She looked at it, she didn't look at it as supportive. She looked at it as telling her what to do or trying to run her life. Whereas Jack is now saying it's your family and friends should be there to help you get stronger again. Don't look at it as they're being, they're obligated to you. And she was like, oh, I never looked at it like that before,
Oh.
So it's giving her a different perspective. So, maybe she looks at her sister in a different way now, And see, we have more long looks. I love the long looks, the long gazes. And then they always feel awkward. So they have to like change the subject.
Yeah, they change the subject.
And so she sees this chair swing, which also will become prominent down the road a piece. And she talks about this, her sister, and he asks about them. It's, oh, we're best friends. And, we're still really close, except for when they fight. And then she's like, but, sometimes I don't know who I am sometimes. And she just has no clue. I think she's still trying to figure it out. And she always had a dream of having a farm and being a vet and having lots of kids. And this is one of the best lines. Dreams are funny things. They can come true when you least expect it.
That's true.
And that'll become prominent also at some point. And it's like certain lines in this show
repeat itself.
They repeat themselves, and they're very poignant for a lot of reasons. And so he's thinking, and it's like the two of them, they just get these like deep in thought moments, and and she has to like shake him out of it. And she's like, are you coming? So they head back to the house, and Hope had really, really tried hard to talk to Lily and, maybe have her call her daughters. And she's done. She's going to let social services take the baby. And Mel is like, you know what? Let me try one more time. Because even Jack is like, I'll go talk to her. He's like, no. Mel's like, let me try one more time. Just let me give it a try. And this is very poignant because she walks in, and before she can even walk in the room where Lily is, it's like she has to like gear herself up for this conversation.
Because she's about to reveal something about her to
That's
Lily.
That's hard. I mean, she almost didn't live through it.
Right, exactly. And it's something that she has not spoken to anybody about, other than who knows her.
Yeah.
Other than people around her at that time know about her. This is something that she has not told anybody except outside her own family.
And this town, you figure, what do they know about her at this point? They know that she's married because she wears a wedding ring. They don't see her husband. They don't, as far as they're concerned, she has no children. He knows probably the most about her, that her parents have passed away, that she has a sister, that they argue, that, I mean, nobody else really knows anything.
And Jack is not a gossiper. That's the thing
No,
about Jack.
no.
He knows everything, but he says
He'll
nothing.
never say anything.
So the fact is that
Nobody else knows
nobody
anything.
knows that she has a sister named Joey. Not even nosy Hope that
Hope.
finds that out later on, but Hope at the present moment does not
Okay,
know
that's
who
probably true.
Joey is.
That's probably true.
Nobody knows who Joey is. The Joey factor comes in later, as you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So nobody knows Joey until that incident happens. For the time being, Jack is the only person who is her confidant in this town.
Right. Yeah. And she just seems to spill her guts to him all the time. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So here we
Well,
are.
she has no friends in this town.
Yeah, that's true. So here's a flashback, and she's laying in bed. The dark circles, that's pretty
Oh yeah,
prominent.
they're pretty prominent. Yes, they are.
Very prominent. And her husband comes home, and he is shocked, disappointed. He's just like, oh, seriously, like you have to get up and get out of this room. And he looks a little pissed because he kind of tosses the laptop on the bed, and he's like, when I left this morning, you promised you would get, and she just is like, I wish I was dead. And he's like, Mel, like he can, and you can still see tears on her face. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like all she does is lay in bed and cry. She can't live without her. And he's like, we're going to get through this, and she's like, no, I'm not. I'm not. And he looks sad, but he was pissed when he walked in, but now he's sort of sad. And he's like, you're strong. And she's like, no, I'm not strong anymore, and she's crying and he's holding her, but she's just distraught. She's like, it's my baby. And he's like, you could do this. And so this is what she's thinking about this right before she walks in to talk to Lily.
Yes.
And it's like she has to gear herself up for this very difficult conversation.
It's like holding her breath.
Yeah.
Without this memories happening, and then letting it out as she walks in to talk to Lily.
It's probably very cathartic to say all this, to have this conversation. As difficult as it is.
Yeah.
And she's just like, I want to be alone. I want to be alone.
Yeah. But she feels that if she says what she needs to say to Lily, it will make a difference.
Yeah. And she hopes it will make a difference. And she's like, I lost my baby. I was so excited, always wanted to be a mother. Clearly she doesn't have any children, so Lily's probably like, there was a complication. She was stillborn. Nothing they could do. And Lily's like, oh, I'm sorry, but why are you telling me this? Like, and Mel is like, after her death, I couldn't get out of bed. She couldn't sit up. Brushing her teeth would make her hysterical, that she was sad all the time. And her husband was worried, so he took her to the doctor, and the doc said, this is not just sadness. This is more than sadness. That it's not just plain grief. It's so much more. And they found out it was postpartum depression. And so Lily's like, oh, you understand. And she said with therapy and medication, she started to feel like herself again. And once that happened, even though she was still heartbroken out about losing her baby, it's the grief didn't control her life. And that was the difference.
Yeah.
And she's hoping that by telling Lily this, maybe that will make her think and help her a little bit. And she's like, yeah, but it's too late. They're going to take the baby. And she's like, no. I'm a certified caregiver. I can look after her until you're back on your feet. That way she can stay in Virgin River. And Lily's like, no. I can't ask you to do that. You don't even know me. I'm a stranger to you. And then, of course, she says, well, someone just reminded me that the value in accepting help when it's offered, which something maybe she didn't do back in the day. And maybe she would have felt better sooner. But so Lily's like, what happens if after, I can't take care of her? And she says, you've got a whole town who will jump at the chance to help you in any way they can. And she's not asking her to make a decision. She's like, look, here, this is what I'm offering. Just think about it. And she just leaves her to think, which is, and it's interesting how every situation that happens, Mel can relate to almost everybody. And we find this out through the series. People
Yes.
have different situations in their life, and Mel always has something that happened in her, because so much she's had such a very interesting life, and so much has
Yes.
happened in her life that she can relate to almost everybody in every situation. And this is just one more thing that unfortunately she can.
Makes her relatable.
Very relatable. Makes her good at her job too, because the
Absolutely.
empathy, the amount of empathy. The social services lady shows up, and Lily's having a chat, and Hope cannot stand it. Oh my God. Hope is peeking through the door, and she's trying to hear, and she's like, oh, I wish I could read lips, because she just can't stand it. And of
Yes.
course, she wants to know, no, Mel, what did you and Lily talk about? And Mel is like, no, Lily deserves her privacy. Forget about it. Because Hope cannot stand not knowing what's going on. And she's
And
like,
this
it's killing me.
I know, and this is and
Doc's like, well, we're not that lucky. God. But they're worried, because if her depression doesn't get dealt with, that could be very dangerous. And
oh,
so they're just sitting around waiting, and Lily comes in, and she's like, okay, can I have everybody come in? We need to talk. They all sit down. She thanks everybody for coming, and for Hope's. She said, Hope's like, we've been friends for 20 years. You're like family. Of course, we're here to help you. Like, we didn't even give it a second thought. She says, we've talked, and I've decided that I have the strength to call my daughter because of Mel. She's so kind, and she offered to take guardianship of a stranger's baby. Like,
yeah.
she can't believe that she would do that, and she inspired her to call her daughter. And even though her daughter was a little surprised, her daughter Tara, which we will meet later, the social worker talked to Tara, and because she's a relative, she can do what's called a kinship placement as a caregiver. And as soon as Lily is ready, they can reunify Lily with the baby legally, and we'll just see how it goes. And I guess Tara was going to drive in that night. That was going to be a much, much better situation than the social worker taking her.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that Doc jumps in, and he's like, oh, well, we're going to all make sure that Lily's taken care of. And Mel here is an expert. She's an expert in these types of situations. And the look that her and Hope give to each other is so funny.
I know.
And she's like, oh, really? Interesting. I'm so good at this. I guess I didn't lose my job. I don't know. We'll see. And then her and Mel and Lily have a little chat.
They kick everybody else out of the room,
Mm-hmm.
and she has a one-to-one with her. And
Yep.
she said that she was surprised that her daughter wasn't disappointed in her, and that she's anxious to meet her little sister.
Yeah.
That she has the courage to reach out, get the help. And Lily asks her if it's okay if she keeps the name Chloe.
Yes.
And Mel tells her that she'll call a therapist in Clearwater. And Lily's like, a therapist in Clear River. And she says, no, this person is
Specializes in that type of depression.
And then at that same time, Jack walks in with Chloe in his arms. And he looks so natural.
I know he does. I love the reason that she says that she wants to keep the name. She says, it will remind her of the nurse that helped her when she couldn't. And it's like it's like bringing Mel back to the nurse that helped her when she was little, when her mom passed away. And you can tell the look on her face. She's just like, it's like she kind of like, she's misty. And Jack is the only one that knows that story. So he gets it too. He's like looking at her like, wow, that means a lot to Mel. But it's like, it's almost like she can't be there. Like she has to like leave the room.
Yeah.
Oh,
and Jack looks so proud of,
I know. Because he was a part of it all.
Yeah, he's like a proud dada,
right?
Sort of. And he, he's just thrilled that
it all worked out.
So we have
back at Hope's place. Doc is bringing Hope home, and she can't let it go. She has to rub in the fact that she was right.
The salt in the womb, honey.
It's like, you should be thanking me that I got Mel to stay. And he's like, oh, fine. You'll take credit where credit is due, but God forbid you don't take credit when you have nothing to do with it. She's like, you hired her back, you're not going to find a better person for this job, kind-hearted and don't see eye to eye. It's like, yeah, but maybe that's what we need, somebody who can see your blind spots, somebody who's not you. Because, I mean, he really shouldn't have like a yes woman to work with him.
No, he can't have a woman. But none of the women in Doc's life are yes women.
No, they're
You know,
all very strong. I don't
they're
know.
very.
I don't know what happened in his life that he's got all these strong women in his life. But so she talks him basically into continuing the 30-day trial and hiring Mel back,
He admits
Yeah.
he's slowing down a little bit.
And that this could be a good thing. And she said, maybe you should update this truck, something from this century.
Yeah.
So she's very proud of herself.
Oh yes, this is like check. I won this.
This is like cat that ate the canary kind of attitude. So she's off.
She starts
climbing the steps, heading home, and
yes,
the stumble,
and gasping for air, and
he runs to her, and something is not right with Hope. She does not feel right, and he's like, "Just breathe." She's like, "What's happening? I don't know what's happening." He's like, "You're going to be fine. I'm going to take care of you," and something is not right. Now we're back at Jack's bar. It looks like they've pretty much closed up. I mean, chairs are on the tables, and
she asks why everybody's gone, and he says, well, animals go to bed early, and so that means they have to get up early morning. So, and what I said earlier, which is it's a small town, there's not really a social life after when it gets dark.
Well, I mean, and if he says we're closed, then everybody goes home and that's it. Like nobody questions, like, what do you mean you're closed? Like they just, okay, cool.
Yeah. And what, Jack opens till 9 o'clock for the latest?
Who knows? Yeah, but definitely if he decides they have to close, then they close. No big deal. Everybody goes. Nobody worries about it. They're a little concerned when people find out that Lily is Chloe's mother. Jack's like, they're going to find out. Hope will handle it. Hope will handle the town because that's what she does. And he gets a drink out, 2 shot glasses, and she's like, wow,
whiskey.
She's in everybody's business. It's like, yeah, this is where I was saying before. When you're on Hope's side, good as gold. Just don't get on her bad side because that's not good.
Right.
And she doesn't want to drink, but he takes his
shot of whiskey.
His shot of whiskey. And he's checking in with her, like, how do you feel now that we had to leave Chloe there? Bottom line, I mean, she's just happy that she's where she's supposed to be.
Right.
And that's really all she wanted. I mean, it's sad because she probably, in a way, not having children that we know of her own, to have the baby, even though her sister's like, what are you doing? What's going on? It's still, she's happy that the baby is where she's supposed to be. The kind of awkward, little bit awkward of a sit down. He's like, there is something that you could do for me. And she's like, oh, really? What's that? And he says, stay. And then he takes a drink and she's like, oh, yeah, are you going to tell me that the town needs me? Blah, la, 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 la. Right? And he's like, no, I wasn't going to say that. Just don't put words in my mouth. She's like, oh, sorry. And he's like, well, I've gotten used to having you around. Like, that is not an endorsement.
Well, and the question is, if she's been in town for 10 days.
But look at how much time, like, we've literally lived through their 10 days. Yes. I mean, don't you feel like we've been there for almost every moment? Exactly. They have spent a significant amount of time together in these 10 days.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
And he was smitten the second she walked in the bar. Let's not get that.
And I would say of those 10 days, he's basically been with her for every one of those days.
And they're all prominent moments, too.
Yeah. There's and it's not like it's not like when you walk into a restaurant, you make an order and you take it to go and that's the end of it. He's taken her places with the baby to have lunch. Yeah. And these are significant amounts of time they have spent in each
farm and
yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, they have spent a significant amount of time. He was like, well, like, if you were to leave, then you'd be missed. And she's just like, oh. Like, I don't know if she thought of him in that way up to this point. Like, she's looking at him like, okay, he's cute. Yeah. Like, I get that.
Yeah, you cannot deny that he's cute. But I think the thing about it is there's so much going on with her and that's been happening to her that I don't think she's taking it.
She's not seeing it.
Right.
She's almost oblivious to it.
Right, exactly, because of all the stuff that's happened to her. I mean, Doc's had her running around in circles, this whole thing with the baby.
He's been yelling at her and Hope's craziness and...
Right, exactly. So there is a lot happening to her. So I think when he makes the statement, she's sort of taken aback.
Yeah, and it almost makes her think like, oh, really? Because the look
Yeah.
on her face is just like, oh, well, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
And he's like, just think about it. Like, just think about it. And she's like, well, trying to like talk him out of it. And he's like, look, just consider it, okay? Just think about it. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking you to make a decision. Just think about it. I mean, and he's sitting there staring at her with those dimples. It's like, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, please, I'll think about it. Yes, 100%. I'll think about it. And
Yeah.
then he has to
Oh,
ask
yeah.
because he can't let it go. There's one
Nope.
thing I've been dying to ask you. She's like, okay. And he's so suave about it. What's the story there? Pointing to the
Mm-hmm.
wedding ring. And she's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, that's going to change the mood. Not something
Yeah.
I'm ready to talk about.
Yeah.
And because he is who he is,
Yes. Yep.
he's like, okay,
Hey.
I understand. No problem. Letting
Yeah,
it
he
go.
lets. Yep.
And
And
then,
just then,
dun, dun, dun.
we hear
Oh, hi.
Charmaine's voice.
Hey, kiss, smooch. Like, she's like, the look on her face.
I know.
Hi, we haven't met. I'm Charmaine. I'm Jack's girlfriend. And she's like, I'm sorry. I'm what? Hi, fake smile. Hi.
Exactly.
Like, looking at him, looking at her, looking at him,
And,
looking at her.
and the look she gives him basically says, "You got to
You
be
dirty dog.
Mm-hmm.
You've had a girlfriend? Like, what?
Right. You've been
What?
basically flirting with me all this time.
Like, we
And
have spent all this time together. Like, in how many moments have we spent together in the 7 to 10 days that we've known each other? How
And
many
you have
hours we're
never
walking the farm, we're
yeah.
having a picnic, you're making me lunch, yeah. And you couldn't have said 3 words. I have a girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, 4 words. I can't count. Like, seriously, like that didn't come out at any point. Really?
Nope.
Like, now that I had a problem with that. Like,
Yeah.
I get that maybe he doesn't want to be in a relationship and maybe he doesn't possibly see her as his girlfriend. Like, that's a label that maybe he's not comfortable with.
Yeah.
Now, we obviously know from the conversation that the two of them had when he left her place that she was feeling that.
Yeah. And I think the thing about it is it's a two-sided relationship, as you can tell at this point, because Jack sees her as a sleeping buddy. That's it.
Yeah. Somebody to spend time with.
But nobody he's going to, it's not like this
It's
is
not
the
a
woman he's gonna
commitment
take
type
home.
relationship.
No, this is not somebody he's taking home to see his mama. You know that.
Oh, he would never introduce his mama.
No, this is not the type of woman he's going to take home to see his mama. This is someone he sleeps with.
He spends some time with.
He spends time with. They go out to dinner. They go to a movie, whatever it is. But this
I don't
is
even
not
know that they
somebody...
would see a movie.
Yeah, and the thing about it is the fact that he didn't even know it was 2 years.
Yeah, that just tells you how committed he is to that relationship.
Oh yeah,
like not at all.
Yeah, this is a sleeping buddy.
Yeah,
you know,
this is someone to hang out with.
That's right.
And again, a cliffhanger. Another episode. It's like every episode they suck you in. You think it's all hunky dory until you get to the end, and then they gotta cut it off and leave you hanging. And wait for the next one.
And are you not glad that these episodes run one after the other?
I swear, if I had to wait
a week for the next one, it's like watching Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
You know, where we had to wait a whole week for when they gave us a cliffhanger.
Okay, but those cliffhangers, the only time most shows have really big cliffhangers are the end of the season, or like, you know how they have like ratings month in like February and May, where you'll have a big, and then they'll be off for a couple of weeks, and then they'll come back with like, oh, this is how we're gonna wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
I feel like this show specifically
does it every
episode. Like, okay, I didn't watch early on because I know you told me about it like 1,000 times, and I was just like, yeah, I'll get to it. I have other things I'm watching, and da. And I finally said okay, and of course now I'm hooked, and you know I watch it on repeat. Whatever.
He's watched it more times than I have.
Let's not talk about that. We're gonna move on. I don't know that with some of these season enders, I mean, granted, a season comes out, they drop all 10 episodes, 12 episodes, whatever it is, all at once. And I know for a fact people will sit and watch all 10 episodes at once.
Oh, yeah. I
Absolutely.
binge watched.
100%.
I'm sorry to say this.
No,
I binge watched
100%.
entire season. In I think season one, I watched in 2 nights.
Yeah. And
You
totally possible. And
yeah,
when each episode, when you know you've got all 10 and each
yeah,
episode is a cliffhanger, but you literally have to wait about 37 seconds for to find out what happened, it's not too bad. But
yeah.
their seasons, because I
Mhm.
didn't start watching until later, and I'm like, there's some of those seasons where I'm like, I could not, and it's a year sometimes, 8 months to a year before the
Yeah.
next season comes out. I would be like, really? Like this is the first real season that I had to. Okay, season 5 is over now. I'm waiting for like 6. Really? What? How long? What? And then we had the
And we
strike and everything. It's like
strike. Yeah,
longer.
yeah, yeah.
Like what?
Yeah, yeah. It was not. It's been a very tough year as far as this show waiting
A
for
lot of
season six to come out.
shows. A lot of shows had to
Yeah,
shorten their seasons. Like instead of 20 plus episodes, they're having 10 or 12 or something because they didn't have the time. Now
yeah,
they were originally supposed to have 12 episodes for the way they just finished filming. I don't know when anybody's going to be listening to this, but in our time right now, they have just finished filming season 6. And originally, I believe were scheduled to do 12 episodes, but because of the strike and the time and whatever, they only wound up doing 10, which is a bummer because they did
it's a
12
bummer.
for 4 and 5. They did 10 for 1, 2, and 3. So, hoping next year, if there's, hoping, cross fingers, toes, and everything else, there'll be a season 7. Hopefully, they go back to 12. That would be really nice. If
Yeah,
season 6 is as good as I think it's going to be, yeah, that'd be awesome. This is the end of the 3rd episode,
mm-hmm.
and yes, we're on a cliffhanger, which should be super fun. The next episode is a lot of fun. A Wounded Heart, which is season 1, episode 4, and join us for the next episode in our
Yes.
continuing saga of the rewatch of Virgin River.
Stay tuned, folks.